If you're trying to rebuild or reinvent your career, you already know the market's crowded. Layoffs are hitting high performers. Applications are going into black holes. And if you're in the middle of a pivot or reinvention, it can feel like you're invisible or worse, irrelevant. So, what do you do when you're ready for your next chapter, but you're competing with thousands of other qualified candidates? You stop waiting for permission and you start building visibility, clarity, and traction in a way that's aligned with your real strengths, your current season, and the direction you actually want to go. In our last video, we talked about creating a solid foundation for your transition so you're not reacting, you're rebuilding strategically. Today, we go from inner clarity to outer momentum, how to be seen, heard, and considered for the roles and opportunities that are actually right for you. First, you're going to align your strengths with market demand. The number one mistake I often see smart, capable women make during a career transition is trying to reposition themselves based solely on what they've already done instead of what's currently in demand. The job market has changed, and companies are hiring for problems to solve, not just resumes to reward. So your first move isn't to update LinkedIn. It's to get laser focused on which of your strengths actually match market needs right now. Here's one way to do that. Scan 10 to 15 job postings or contract roles that seem interesting or aligned. Don't apply yet. Study them. Look at the skills, results, and outcomes they're asking for. Are they looking for cross-functional collaboration, operational scale storytelling that drives revenue? Whatever it is, underline those phrases because those are signals. Now cross-reference that list with your career wins. Pull up past performance reviews, client results, leadership feedback. What are the problems you've consistently solved? Where have you created transformation, not just output? This isn't about fitting yourself into a box. It's about getting specific on the language of value. Because when you can describe your own strengths through the lens of what companies or clients are actually looking for, you immediately increase your visibility. And then you stop sounding like a resume and you start sounding like a solution. And here's a strategy a lot of people miss. Go to the LinkedIn profiles of people currently in the roles that you want. How do they describe their work? What keywords show up again and again? Use that as an inspiration to shape your story. Because you're not just updating your profile, you're speaking the market's language. Number two, I want you to refresh and communicate your personal brand without feeling like you're performing. So, of course, we have to talk about personal brand. And I know the word itself can feel off-putting, especially if you've just been laid off, are mid-pivot, or are carrying quiet shame about not knowing what's next. You might be wondering, how can I talk about my career when I don't even know what I want yet? Or worse, what do I post when I feel like I've lost momentum or relevance? But here's the truth. Your personal brand isn't a vibe or a tagline. It's not a clever headline or even a daily post schedule. Your personal brand is the story people tell about you when you're not in the room. It's the consistent thread that weaves through how you show up in writing, in conversation, in how you position your value. And right now, your personal brand is one of the most powerful tools you have to rebuild or reinvent. So let's strip it back. Your job isn't to invent something new. It's to uncover and communicate what's already true, clearly, confidently, and in a way that helps the right people see what you're capable of. Start with this. Reach out to 2 or 3 trusted colleagues or mentors and ask, what do you see as my edge? What's the value I bring that others might miss? Their responses will give you language that's rooted in experience, not self-doubt. Use it as raw materials to start shaping your narrative. Then think about where your brand needs to show up, not just on social media, but across your ecosystem. So this can include other places like your email signature, your intro messages when you're networking, a one-pager or a portfolio that you can create, and yes, of course, your LinkedIn presence and the way you talk about yourself in conversations. And yes, let's talk about LinkedIn because whether you love it or not, it is still the most powerful tool for professional visibility, especially when you're rebuilding or reinventing. And look, I get it. I've had coaching clients fight me on this because it felt, in their words, cringe to show up on LinkedIn. I know there's some posturing and humble bragging going on, but there's also a lot of learning, sharing, and connecting. And like it or not, that's where a lot of people looking for talent start. So you need to be there and you need to think strategically about your presence. Here's what most people I find get wrong about LinkedIn. They treat it like a resume database, but it's so much more than that. It's a positioning platform. And in a crowded market, your profile should communicate two things fast: what you do well and what you're doing next. So, yes, please update your headline, not just your last title. A simple formula to consider is function or impact, audience or sector, future focus or mission. So, an example: helping mission driven brands grow through strategy and storytelling, advisor, brand builder, exploring impact led opportunities, or equipping leaders to navigate complexity, make high stakes decisions, and rebuild or reimagine their careers. Executive coach, podcast host. Actually, don't use that. That's mine. But do connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know the podcast sent you. Rewrite your summary to focus on your strengths, working style, and the direction you want to take. Let the reader know who you are, what you're known for, and what excites you next. If you're at a mid-career level, in your experience section, emphasize outcomes. Don't just list duties. Share the results, transformation, and value that you created. Use language that mirrors the roles or consulting gigs that you want now. And add to your featured section, even one link, an article, a presentation, a testimonial, or a visual portfolio can dramatically improve your credibility. If you're consulting or open to fractional work, you could include a link to a service summary or a one-pager. And if posting still feels intimidating, don't start by broadcasting, start by engaging. Comment on posts from people in your field. Share someone else's insights with a short reflection. Or write one post that reflects what you're learning in this season. Visibility doesn't mean shouting, it means showing up. If you want a LinkedIn presence without having to perform, just be intentional. One good post a week, a handful of meaningful comments, one profile that reflects your future and not just your past. And remember, your brand lives in more than your profile. It shows up in how you email someone, how you describe yourself during a call, how you follow up after a conversation. Your consistency, clarity, and tone become your brand, even if you never post publicly, though I encourage you to do so. This isn't about being everywhere. It's about being clear and consistent. The right people can't help you if they can't see you. But when your brand is anchored in who you are and where you're headed, not who you think you should have been, it becomes magnetic. You don't need to be loud, you just need to be aligned and visible. And that starts with owning your story and showing up for it. 3, I want you to reframe and communicate your story. This is one of the hardest parts of transition, especially for high-achieving women. What do you say when someone asks, "What are you doing now?" or "What's next?" Whether you were laid off, took a career pause, or are mid-pivot, you need a version of your story that feels honest and confident. And here's the truth. The story you tell yourself is just as important as the one you tell others. A simple framework to try is this: where you've been, what you're known for, and where you're headed. So for example, you could say, I spent the last 8 years leading brand strategy at a global CPG company. I'm known for turning underperforming teams into high-impact storytellers. Now I'm exploring roles where I can bring that same transformation to purpose-driven startups. You don't need every detail, but you do need clarity and you need conviction. If you're consulting, pivoting, or open to different models of work, you can say, I'm using this transition season to take on projects that align with my values and strengths while exploring what's next long term. This positions as someone who's intentional, not flailing. And here's a bonus tip. Test your story. Practice it with a trusted peer or mentor. Watch their reaction. Does it land? If not, tighten it. You don't owe anyone a perfect plan, but you do owe yourself a story that reflects your power. Because once your story is clear, you can start sharing it in the right places to generate real traction. 4, I want you to expand your opportunity pipeline. Let's be honest. Job boards feel safe, but they're not always effective. especially right now when hundreds of people are applying to every role and AI filters are eliminating candidates before a human ever sees your name. Looking for more opportunities? They live in conversations, referrals, and non traditional channels, and that's your new pipeline. Start with warm outreach. Reach out to 5 to 10 people you've worked with, worked for, or been mentored by. Ask them for insight. Let them know you're in a transition. Share your updated story and tell them what you're exploring. People remember people who show up with clarity and curiosity. And then go beyond full-time roles. Consider consulting, fractional leadership, project work, or even short-term contracts in adjacent industries. And if you've been in a demanding corporate role for years, this might be the season to test a different model, one that gives you flexibility and visibility. Pro tip: here's a strategy a lot of people miss, one that can quietly create a massive competitive advantage. Subscribe to industry specific newsletters and hidden job boards. These are curated spaces where companies post high quality roles before they hit the mass platforms. Many of these companies are hiring for culture fit, mission alignment, and specific value, not only keyword matches. And they're often looking for people who are paying attention, not just applying everywhere. So start with your sector or your passion. If you're exploring work in tech, social impact, climate, women led startups, or flexible remote roles, there are job boards built specifically for you. Tech ladies post roles at companies committed to hiring and retaining women in tech and leadership. Climate Base and Work on Climate for sustainability and innovation. Mercor and We Work Remotely or for flexible opportunities. Because often these aren't mass market job engines, the application volume is often lower, the roles more mission aligned, and the hiring process less robotic. You're more likely to be seen as a person and not just a resume. So look, if you only remember one thing here, let it be this. The opportunities on the front page of LinkedIn or on Indeed aren't the only ones out there. There are also inside newsletters, in Slack groups, on boards curated by people who care about more than only your credentials. Sometimes it's not about applying to 50 jobs a day, but more about showing up in the right 5 conversations. This is how you can build real traction, by being where the right doors are already open. Set up Google alerts for keywords in your field. Opportunities are everywhere, but you have to look beyond the front door. Here's where a lot of people lose momentum. They send a few emails, have a few promising conversations, and then forget who they followed up with, what roles they considered, or what someone suggested during a call, because it all lives in their head or in a sea of unsearchable Gmail threads. This is why I recommend using a simple spreadsheet or a Notion board to track your conversations, leads, and follow-ups. You could set it up in 20 minutes. This small system does something powerful. It turns your transition from chaotic to intentional. It's not just job searching, it's opportunity mapping. You're identifying where your strengths could solve real problems. You're building relationships. You're studying which roles feel aligned and which ones leave you cold. The more you track, the more clarity you create. And here's the magic. When you can see your own progress, even if you haven't landed a role yet, you're more likely to stay in motion. And this is how you build traction. One thoughtful conversation, one aligned opportunity, and one smart follow-up at a time. And here's your differentiator. Believe it or not, most people don't follow up, but you will. A thoughtful follow-up message a week after initial outreach is often the difference between silence and a breakthrough. Many women feel invisible during a career transition, but invisibility isn't permanent, and it isn't personal. It's often just a sign that you haven't yet recalibrated your message, your story, or your strategy to match where you're going next. When you align your strengths to the market, refresh your personal brand, reframe your story, and build an opportunity pipeline beyond the job boards, you stop waiting to be picked. You start building momentum that's real, strategic, and yours. This work matters, and you don't have to do it alone. If you're ready for deeper support, I'd love to invite you to my free masterclass, Get Unstuck and Move Forward with Confidence. It's designed for ambitious women just like you, who are navigating pivots, layoffs, and reinventions. and want to move forward with clarity, strength, and a plan. The link is in the description, and I'll see you there.